Good morning, everyone. On the
I could hear him.
Trustee Reader.
Present.
Reader present. Baines.
Present.
Baines present. Gilbert is absent. Gilbert.
I'm here.
Gilbert's here. Thank you. Aptis. Absent. Baines.
Here.
Barandis.
Brandis here.
Thank you. Perez.
Present. Here.
Thank you. All present. Except for Aptis.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, motion.
Oh.
Okay. Do you guys care? Okay. Motion approved by, to the agenda by trustee Baines and seconded by trustee Perez. Board secretary, please take the roll.
Trustee Lee Reader.
Aye.
Lee Reader, aye. Gilbert.
Aye.
Gilbert, aye. Aptis absent. Baines.
Aye.
Baines, aye. Barandis.
Aye.
Barandis, aye. Perez.
Aye.
Perez, aye. Smith.
Here. Yes.
Thank you. Motion's approved.
Okay. Trustee Perez, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, does anyone have any conflict of interest in today's agenda? Hearing none, moving on to presentations. We don't have any, or do we?
No presentations this morning.
Kevin, do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
We actually did receive a public comment email late last night from 60 homeowners in the Cove development, which is off of West El Camino. And it had to do with comments about homeless encampments. And so we have received numerous calls starting about 2 weeks ago. And it all started with a removal that the county park rangers performed at I Street Bridge and Garden Highway, just down here past Chevy's on the river. And so during the high water events that we experienced in January, lasted the last couple of months, the unhoused that had previously resided in Discovery Park area down in the floodplain moved up onto the bike path and onto the levee. We have been coordinating with the city of Sacramento with our outreach team to enact their ordinance. The county also has adopted their ordinance, but they're still kind of in the infantile stage of implementing their ordinance and like getting things coordinated with local agencies. So the county park rangers came in about 2 weeks ago and started displacing the individuals that were right here at the I-5 bridge. We didn't know that they were doing this removal or this cleanup. We couldn't prepare, and in all actuality, in RD1000's opinion, they were okay where they were at on the levee there. It's a nice wide open spot, so there was no excavation or digging into the levee, and it wasn't causing some problem because the bike path was open. I believe the county had placed porta potties, close to Sutter Health down there, and all of a sudden, Monday morning, Gabe probably fielded 50 calls in the last week, and unfortunately, a lot of those individuals, they weren't allowing them to go back into Discovery Park now that the river's down, and I understand for that purpose, but the unhoused displaced significantly into the local neighborhood. So on your way in this morning to the office, you probably noticed on the land side a lot of tents and things that hadn't previously been there, and some of those individuals relocated to our main drainage canal, just north of West El Camino, behind the new Cove, the Beezer development there. And so these are brand new homes, brand new community that haven't seen, the unhoused. And so we received, and so I want to enter into the record an email from one of the individuals there And it was signed by 60 other residents in the cove. And so I want to enter that public comment, and I have the email, so I'll make sure it's in our minutes. And they're asking for our immediate help. They've also indicated in that letter that they made a similar request to the city and county for assistance. So it caught us a little bit off guard. Obviously, we're still recovering from the flood season, and we have to soon start our mowing activities and maintenance activities. And so now, instead of working with the city and planning it out and strategically doing it, we're going to have to respond with some answer on that relocation. And it took a lot of people off guard. So we've been fielding a lot of calls. Certainly understand the concerns of the community. This isn't just a RD 1000 issue. This is a statewide issue, nationwide issue. But we're doing our best to field those calls. I did have an opportunity to meet with Councilmember Talamontes this week as a meet and greet. And we talked a lot about the unhoused. And I told her about this relocation at Discovery Park. And she said, that's why I've been getting so many phone calls in the last 2 weeks. And I said, yeah, it caught us off guard too. So I have that email late last night. Haven't had a chance to respond to the individual, but he did want to make it on behalf of the 60 plus residents entered into public comment this morning. So other than that, I don't see any other members of the public here, or it's all in person. So we're not taking comments remotely anymore. So in-person meetings.
Can I ask, do we have an official response or official position? Because you said you were going to prepare a response. I was wondering, is the board going to get to see that?
Yeah, I will copy you to the individual's email and my response back so that I'll obviously work with Scott and Rebecca. Gabe has been responding to the phone calls and explaining what's happened and why all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks this has been an issue. So when we get into GM's report, we'll talk further about our homeless or unhoused progress and what we're doing there. So that's the public comment.
Kevin, can the trustees get a copy before it gets into the minutes? The email.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Published until next board
Yeah.
meeting. So I'll send that to you. It came in at about 8:30 last night.
Okay.
So
Okay. Any other comments?
none. I do believe the feedback's good. So if you want to leave your mics open, I think, unless we get some, you can leave them open, I think, because you're far enough apart. So unless we get some echoing, that we won't forget.
Okay. On to informational items. We'll turn it over to you for 4.1 and 4.3.
Yeah, so on the general manager's report, we've been pretty busy this month with finishing up the flood season and starting the committee meetings for budget preparation. We did meet with the personnel committee and operations committee in the last 2 weeks. We have a scheduled finance committee meeting next Friday, which will review the draft budget for presentation to the board at our May board meeting, and then receive full board comments with the assumptions that personnel, operations, and finance committee. The draft budget will be presented in May and presented back to the board based on any feedback at the May board meeting as a final draft for the board's approval in June. The June board meeting will be June 17th. We're moving it back 1 week based on a couple different variables, but we'll note in the calendar June 17th. And if anyone can't attend in person, please let me know ahead of time. And I will be able to, just like Tom's dialed in this morning remotely, I just have to post the location that you will be at. As long as we have a quorum of the board within the district boundaries, we're covered. And so we can walk through procedures. If you're unable to meet June 7th, I'm sorry, I keep saying 17th, June 16th. We're not meeting Saturday, June 16th, Friday, 8 a.m. For the June board meeting. And I'll send out a revised calendar invite. If you do have a conflict, let me know. We'll post the remote location and you'll be able to participate as long as we have a quorum. So that's the board preparation. Standard routine operations and maintenance activities. We are getting ready to ramp up our mowing activities now that flood season is kind of tampering down. I do want to point out a couple things in the miscellaneous portion of the GM report. We were able to submit a community project fund request through Assembly Member Barra's office, or sorry, Congress Member Barra's office on March 18th. And we requested $4.5 million worth of funding for the community project fund underneath FEMA's pre-flood mitigation project or funding area. We were fortunate enough to reach out through CSDA during the year, and Bear's chief of staff reached out to me and extended the deadline, especially for us, as long as I got the application in over the weekend. And I was unaware that they had put out their request. And so now we're tuned in. We'll do this annually. The funds do not roll over past the next fiscal year. So we're not quite ready to I don't know who Jordan is. We're not quite ready to have off the shelf engineering projects like shovel ready to expend funds in any one fiscal year. And so the funds have to be expended. But what we did submit was for the purchase of 2 mobile generators as well as 2 stationary generators for Plant 8. So we'll get those purchased prior to installation. And so that request was for $4.5 million. And we'll see through negotiations in Congress and the appropriations if they come out. But we did get that request in, and that's something we're keyed into every year because this is an ongoing appropriation project. So just want to let you know that we may have $4.5 million coming in or some subset, and that'll get us on the road because the purchase of the backup generators are ready to go. We just have the specs we can submit, and we can get those funds spent in the next fiscal year. The United States Army Corps of Engineers, Unit 124 O&M Manual. This has been a project that's been in process for 10 plus years. And it's a revision of the O&M manual. And this includes the vegetative variants for the Garden Highway vegetation. The Corps, and this is part of the SWIFT program, right? So the Corps did adopt the O&M manual. They assigned it to the Central Iowa Flood Protection Board. The Central Iowa Flood Protection Board is in agreement with it. We had an informational item last month, and they will be taking up action to transfer that O&M responsibility to RD 1000 at the April flood board meeting. So huge accomplishment, long process, another thing to check off the list. They're very excited about it. We're working internally on a joint press release with the Central Iowa Flood Protection Board, SAFCA, and the Corps. We'll see who takes it up, but it'll probably come from the Central Iowa Flood Protection Board, but we did offer to assist them in the press release. It's a huge accomplishment. So we're one step closer to implementation and approval of the SWIFT and updated O&M manual recognizes the benefits of the levee improvement project for the Natomas levee program. So huge step, and we're getting one step closer, as I mentioned. Flood maintenance assistance program. We received 2 weeks ago the fully executed agreement for FMAP funding for this next year. Again, so it's another $421,000, no local match through DWR's FMAP program. That's fully done. We put in the advanced payment request, so we'll get the funding on hand, and then we'll start spending it down. The intent is to utilize this funding to address the 50 remaining high hazard encroachments along Garden Highway so that we can submit for our letter of map revision in coordination with the Corps, SAFCA, the city and county at completion or ahead of the completion of the Natomas levee improvement project so that we can meet that legislative requirement for 200-year flood protection. Hopefully FEMA will then recertify our levee at 200-year flood protection. So we're keeping pace with that. And one of those last little check boxes is the high hazard encroachment. So the certifying engineer. So we talked previously about our implementation plan to address those at a board meeting in October, I believe, September, October last year. This is part of that process, and to make that funding available for the 50 or so properties that opted out of our program last year. We, in fact, will be sending out next week the letters and offering the assistance. And we're also working with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board Enforcement Division to address some of those, some of those others, to start that process to make sure that we're on pace to meet our deadline, that we're not the roadblock for submittal of the LOMAR. The Sacramento and San Joaquin Drainage District Property Abatement Program. Back in August, we had a presentation from the Central Valley Flood Protection Board about a pilot program. They specifically targeted RD1000 because of our efforts in how proactive we are in engagement in our activities, whether it was the two previous Cooper's bills, the work with the city and county to adopt ordinances about critical infrastructure. And so they reached out to us to be a demonstration project for others to do abatement. Our board did approve the application for that back in August through a resolution authorizing me to submit a program. And so this is for abatement of trash and debris. So I mentioned earlier during public comment that we have some progress here. We've put in for a 90-day, essentially 90 days worth of cleanup using Forensic Clean, a contractor. We have a quote, it's the same contractor the city uses for their abatement. And so we put in for $465,000, which would be about 90 days steady cleanup. Obviously, we'll be in mowing activities, so we need to contract out for this service. Immediately following that cleanup, if we do receive this funding, we'll start our 24/7 patrol, particularly on the Thomas East Main Drain, where we see the most activity. But we'll stop. We'll start that 24/7 patrolling to prevent the accumulation of debris, to keep those individuals moving along on and informing them of the ordinance. And so we'll instruct our security patrol, and hopefully that will eliminate the accumulation and the building of encampments. And so we budgeted for that increased security patrol. We've just been waiting for a significant cleanup so that it makes it worth spending the extra money, right? Instead of just hopscotching and moving along. So we've been waiting for that. So that submittal's in. I'm waiting to hear back if we do get that funding, but we're ready if they do award that to us. CSDA, last month, the board did nominate me to run for the open seat. I have submitted my candidate statement nomination form. And so balloting will start, I think, around the 1st of June, once the ballots are closed and sent out. So look for that in your emails. Talk to other special districts and what was the Rock the Vote from ETV years ago. So anyway, and then Greg with MBS and Eric with Page Design and myself were selected to be on a speaker panel at the CSDA and array regarding our Prop 218 process and success. So we're going to do basically like a town hall meeting. We'll have an hour. The three of us will present about how we went through. And so it has components of the financial, the administration, and the public communication and interface and outreach. So I think it'll be a great panel. Greg, Eric, and I will be working on our formal presentation and our write-up of that. We submitted an abstract and we were selected. So I know a number of you will be attending the CSDA conference, and so you will be required to attend my session. I'll be looking for you. So anyway, it's really great to showcase the district and everything that we've put so much effort into over the last 3 years. And it really spotlights the district and what we've been doing. And hopefully we can help educate other, special districts in how to get something accomplished when you're facing such an uphill battle. So other than that, I have nothing else to add to the GM's report. A little bit lengthy, but it's been a busy month, so I'd entertain any questions on the GM report.
Feel free to send me a draft of the press release with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. I want to make sure we get credit
Just for next week.
for
So.
all of our work. Yeah, I'm glad that is, we're kickstarting our SWIFT back up. Brace yourselves. And do we still have the same amount of FMAC grant to help out homeowners who want to use that funding?
Yeah, so last year our funding amount was slightly more by like $20,000 or $25,000 more than what we received this year, and it just has to do with the allocation. We submitted a much greater request, but the allocation of funds and spreading that out amongst other LMAs, DWR, gave us 421. We think that's going to be about the same amount needed. It was about $10,000 per property on average to get the 50 done plus administration and the grant we had before. Probably a similar, path and approach. Actually, we might be a little more efficient this year because the contractor knows what they're, getting into. If it's the same contractor, right? Obviously, we'll go out to bid and RFQs. We've only had over the past 4 years, one qualified contractor to submit a proposal. And so it's likely going to be the same person. We broadcasted out, but we only had, over the past couple of years, one contractor. So, and they were a responsible qualified bidder, and we've been, appreciative of their work. But we'll still go through a request for proposal process as required through our funding agreement with the state. So make sure we're vetted.
Okay, any questions? You guys are all good? Okay, on to the operations manager's report.
We don't have much to add unless Dave, you want to point anything out on your
Yeah,
report.
for the most part, we were 24-hour patrol last month for a significant amount of time. So that we were kind of limited to what we were doing. So the crews were out there patrolling for most of the time and pumping plant repairs and maintenance items. I'm working on a FEMA grant. I do have a recovery scoping meeting next week for the interior drainage canals. We occurred a lot of sloughing occurred along the interior drainage canal. So there is a funding opportunity through FEMA. So I'm hopeful that will take shape here next week. As well as DWR did send out information regarding potential funding for upper and lower patrol road AB placement. So I am working working on the application for that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of funding opportunities out there. So we're just trying to take advantage of them. So hopefully that will work out like we want it to.
I'm thankful that you're very aggressive about pursuing opportunities.
Can I ask a quick question? One of the calculations I tried to perform based on the information in your report was how much rainfall and how much do we pump? Like, I couldn't figure out what the size of the district was, but it looks like, my guess is for 6 inches of rain, we pumped about 3 inches of that into the river.
It really all depends where it falls to. I mean, we're
True.
our gauge is at the courtyard, right? But there's obviously more rainfall in different areas of the district, so it really depends what gets hit. If we get a lot of rain up north, our northern pumping plants will take care of that. We won't see that down in the southern area, right? So until we get rain gauges at various spots, we can't tell the averages.
But that was the information I'm trying to get is generally for rainfall, how much sinks in, how much do we pump?
Yes.
But it looks like it's about half. So if we get 6 inches of rain, 3 inches seems to infiltrate. I was in a rough calculation.
Yeah, so I've done this for a long time in the irrigation district business, and effective rainfall is something I studied significantly in college. It really has to do with the moisture content of the soil and whether it and at which point you get into field capacity. So if we have in any given year, if we had early rainfall at the end of the irrigation season, so you're talking September, October timeframe, and it keeps the soil at field capacity, which means it's fully saturated, that you don't have much infiltration into groundwater, then your effective rainfall obviously isn't going to deep percolation, and a lot of it is just runoff. If, however, we have a long dry spell after the irrigation season, for example, and we don't get rains until like February, and depends on the intensity of the rainfall, inches per hour, you could actually get to the field capacity because your infiltration rate, sorry, I'm going to nerd out. Your infiltration rate is different than the just precipitation rate. And so you have runoff there. So it's really hard to put into an average, I mean, we could look at it over time to say how many inches of rain versus pumping, but it may not give the true indicator about any particular year type. So, but we can run that number for you.
My concern is generally, do we have enough pumping capacity for, and that's what I was wrestling with, the numbers, trying to figure out as I saw your numbers on how much each
in our
pumping
hydraulic
plant put out.
So our hydraulic now is set up to run a 200-year line, to have enough capacity in our system and pumping to, handle a 200-year event. So yeah.
And then once again, it goes back to antecedent moisture condition and things like that. Okay.
Correct.
So I'm just-
And condition of our pumping
As a new
facilities. So
board member
yeah.
and a resident.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we have enough capacity. Okay, thanks, Kevin and Gabe.
Okay,
Any other questions on the ops report? On to 4.3.
council first.
Morning, board members. Scott Shapiro, co-agency counsel, or agency co-counsel, I guess. Co-agency counsel would mean we're all agencies. Rebecca Smith was supposed to be here this morning, but had a family issue that came up just this morning. So I'm filling in for her. Reviewing communications for the last month, we handled 4 primary issues on behalf of the district. We've been working on development agreements with developers in the area, finalize the Lone Tree Canal transfer, certification of the stormwater fee election, and then finally been working with the trustees themselves on collecting information for the general manager review. Happy to answer any questions on those. If I can't, then I can text Rebecca and get answers for you promptly. Thank you.
Okay, on to the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to move the consent calendar.
I'll move approval of consent.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with unanimous consent. On to item 6.1.
All right, item 6.1 is review, consider, adoption of resolution 2023-0401, certifying the results of the balloting procedure for our proposed stormwater service fee. I don't know if Zara or Greg are on from MBS, and I don't think I just have them here in case there's any questions, but we did finish the tallying of the votes on March 17th. And it was successful by 56%. We had a voter turnout of a little more than 23%, which is significant for us. The first time that we had a mail-in ballot back in 2020 for the trustee election, we had voter participation of less than 4%. We've done significant outreach and efforts to make the community aware of who we are, what we do, the services we provide. And I think that the evidence is paying off that we do have this community awareness now. The 2022 election, we saw voter participation significantly increase. We saw a significant number of trustee candidates as well, like a record number. We had 7 candidates for the 2022 trustee election. And now, and again, during that process, we were hovering a little lower than 20% voter participation during the trustee election. And so now with the Prop 218 and the outreach effort to get to 23% is pretty good. I mean, the threshold is about 25% voter participation through the Voter Participation Act. So we're still progressing there. But I think that we have achieved our goal for participation. The ballot measure was successful. And so before you today is to certify the results of the election. And then item 6.2 that we'll get to in a minute is to actually implement the fee. So our 218 will conclude at the end of this item, and then we'll start implementation. So I appreciate all the support. It's been a long road from the board and from staff and putting this together and through our consultants. It's been about 3.5 years worth of effort to get to this point. So and you guys were steadfast through all of it. And I know we've had changes in trustees and some off and back on. So welcome back, Mr. Brandis. You were here when we started this process, and now you're back. And I'm glad that you're here to see it through. So I would entertain any questions, or if Scott needed to add anything to the report, but I'll turn it over to the board for questions, and then we'll take public comment.
Okay.
Again, due to the process, I thought under, was it Prop 13, if you had a new tax, you needed 2/3 or 60%. How did we get by with a simple majority? Has something changed in the process?
So Prop 13 is a legacy proposition for property-related fees. And so our existing assessment was under those, the existing assessment that we have followed Prop 13. Proposition 218 came along in 1996. I'm looking at Scott, or sometime 95. Our existing assessment was pre-Prop 218, so met the requirements of Prop 13. Prop 218, because of a two-step process, depending on the type of fee initiated, ours is a property fee that has an option to opt out if you provide your own stormwater service, like you completely have your own or discharge to the river. In fact, we have about 4,000 customers in our 4,000 property owners within our boundaries that don't receive this service. And so through the property fee two-step process, it requires a majority protest. Step 1 that we completed in November. Step 2 is a simple majority of the property ownership. So we followed it to a T, right, Scott? So, yes. For the record, yes.
Yeah, so I agree with everything Kevin said. That there are different thresholds of requirement depending upon whether it's a fee or a tax or an assessment. And as a stormwater fee, the requirement is that it not have a majority protest, basically. And so by 56%, it passes. There are other kinds of property related taxes which would have required 2/3. This was not one.
Any other questions from the board?
No, just comments. Thanks, Kevin. It's been a long road. Obviously, I've been on the board for several years. I remember when we adopted the CIP, and obviously it was unfunded. And dealing with this issue has really been a big one for all of us as we transition from, obviously an ag district to a more urbanized district, and the levels of service and that people expect with that. And so now we finally have a funding source to do that, and I look forward to implementing our capital improvement program. So, kudos to you and your staff. That was, it was a long road, and, a bit anticlimactic, I suppose, but nevertheless, it feels good to get it done and behind us. I know it wasn't, unanimous amongst the folks, but I think over the long run, as these things go, people will understand the investments that are made to infrastructure and the benefits had from those. I mean, I'm reticent to obviously support new taxes without significant justification, but this in this case is a very important, significant one. So, congratulations to you and all of us, and look forward to moving forward to implementation.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Thank you for the leadership of the board as well, and trusting us through this with staff and consultants, and providing meaningful feedback along the way and adjusting the plan. And I think that we've come up with a really great plan. I'm really proud of it, and I appreciate again the leadership and the trust that the board had in us as staff and consultants that helped us. So appreciate that.
Did we receive any correspondence on this? Is there any?
I received no public comment on this prior to the board meeting, and I don't see any other public here, but.
Okay. Public comments closed at this time. Can I entertain a motion to approve?
Do we have anybody online or anything? Just
Tom?
All of our meetings are in person. Tom's remote location, so he's called in. So essentially, we're not broadcasting this out. Anyone from the public, no, we'll provide the recording, but we're not doing a hybrid setup, and we're not receiving the way we notice the meeting because we're back at our current Brown Act requirements. Anyone who wants to participate needs to be in person,
including public comment.
Public comment,
yeah,
correct?
Yeah. All right.
Tom is remote conferencing in, and so we're sharing the screen and recording because he is at a remote location and we noticed it on the agenda. So, and for other, a little bit off topic here, but if you are traveling, let me know a week ahead of time. We'll post that location and walk you through the procedures to doing it. And keep in mind, we talked about, 2 emergency meetings. If you have something that comes up, then we can, unpost it to allow during the year. So,
Okay.
Okay,
I move to adopt resolution 2023-04-01.
can I get a second?
Second.
Motion to adopt resolution number 2023-04-01 to certify the property-related fee election by trustee Perez and seconded by trustee Smith. Board Secretary, please take the roll.
Trustee Reader.
Aye.
Lee Reader, I. Gilbert.
Aye.
Gilbert, I. Abdus.
Aye.
Abdus, I. Baines.
Aye.
Baines, I. Barandis.
Aye.
Barandis, I. Perez.
Aye.
Perez, I. Smith.
Aye.
Smith, I. Thank you. Motion's approved.
Item 6.2.
Board President, if I may add one last comment on item 6.1. Coming in the May budget as we work through, and we'll revise, work with the Finance Committee next Friday for budget preparation. I do want to make known that it was a big commitment for the 218 because the 218 had to stand alone from the existing fee. And part of that commitment, what the board will potentially see after review by the Finance Committee, is a reduction of our existing assessment working through the draft budget. This is just a little highlight of possibly 60% of the existing fee. So it's not something that we could communicate with the public during that process because our property fee had to stand alone from the existing assessment. But just looking at the finances and what we committed to and filling that gap, there could be a reduction potentially of about 60% next fiscal year.
Look forward to that discussion.
Okay, on to 6.2. On to staff presentation.
Item 6.2, so now that the fee is certified, now we have to do annual administration of that fee and looking at the assessment roll. We currently use SCI for our existing assessment and to place it on the county roll. So they look at the certified assessment report from the county. They apply a rate, which will determine in July, both for the assessment and the fee, and then they do the administration. They get it on actually placed with the county on the county tax rolls, both with Sacramento and Sutter County. Because we have a new property related fee now, we're recommending for this year only. We've used SCI for a number of years on the assessment. MBS is also, intimately knowledgeable about our new property related fee. Just for consistency and the short time frame, we would like them to administer the fee this year for the property related fee and get it placed with the city and county. So before you today is a proposal to do that, $25,000 SCI to administer our existing assessment, which is a little less complicated. It has 5 zones of benefit, pretty set in stone. We have 14 different customer classes and land use classifications. So MBS's proposal is for $25,000. And so pretty consistent. SCI's annual contract is roughly $21,000 to do our existing assessment. What we propose to do as staff, because of the short time frame to get this done and placed on the roll prior to August 1st with the counties respectively, we would like to just continue for continuity with MBS. And then our plan for next year is to do an RFQ. And there's a number of firms that can do this. SCI has over 300 clients. MBS has 200 clients. We have a local firm that we have a relationship with for development impact fee, LWA. So there are other firms that do it, and we want to have one administer this moving down the road. So the plan is in fiscal year 24-25 is to go out with an RFQ and select a contractor. But for this year only, we won't. Staff's recommendation is to go with MBS to make sure that we're placed on the roll for the next tax year.
Okay. Open for board discussion. Nope. Okay. Open for public comment.
No
None.
public comment.
Okay. Hearing none, public comment is closed. Can I entertain a motion to approve?
So we
Can I get a- okay. Motion to authorize general manager to execute a contract with NVS for administrative property related fee for fiscal year 2023-2024 by trustee Abdus and seconded by trustee Barandis. Board secretary, please take the roll.
Trustee Reader. Aye. Reader, aye. Gilbert.
Aye.
Gilbert, aye. Abdus.
Aye.
Abdus, aye. Baines.
Aye.
Baines, aye. Barandis.
Aye.
Barandis, aye. Perez.
Aye.
Perez, aye. Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Motion carries.
On to the next, 6.3, our district logo.
Okay, so in getting ready for the board meeting this morning, and in discussion with the executive committee, I'm hesitant to place the logo up on the screen, but I will pass out. I need to go pick up off the printer so you can see the logo because staff's recommendation is to have it trademarked, right? And so we've been working on this process with Page Design, and Eric's on the call today. Eric's our superstar contractor and consultant with all of the outreach effort, all the graphic stuff that we had for Fort Natomas. But Eric and I had started on this process to update the district's logo. And so there's a little bit of a strategy to doing potentially some unveiling of the district logo at the CSDA conference. We are placing an application in for an outreach award, and we'll have a video. And so it might be kind of cool to do an unveiling of the logo if it is approved by the board. And so Eric and I went through an early step process, survey, branding, and then we presented the urbanization committee back in October. And this is a poor quality printout. I'll be happy to email all of you a better graphic, but I was just able to do that off my phone as a screenshot. But through work with urbanization committee, we evaluated over 20 different logos, finalized to about 3, and the urbanization committee has recommended this logo for approval as a new district logo. If that is the board's recommendation, we'll work it into our fiscal year 24-25 budget to replace letterhead, do updated signs, obviously for the boardroom and signage at the district office. But there's a lot of thought and process. I don't know, Eric, if they have it in front of you. I printed it out because we want to be we don't want it out in the public for use yet until potentially we get it trademarked. Sure. We can lock it in as recommendations. So I just printed out a copy and it's not on the screen. But Eric, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to say thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity, Kevin. It's been great working with everybody. Just as a general, it's been a really amazing process to work with everybody, including everybody on the board. Thank you for all of your help and getting us to execute everything, even on the fee campaign and all the outreach efforts that we've done. I think that the logo that we've developed is much more representative of the actual mission, and we'll do a really great job of kind of bringing the community together and assigning a lot more authority to what RD1000 does for the district itself. The elements that we've used, as you can see, we pull on the ideas of being kind of protecting. And so you can see that that's been illustrated in the general shape of what that logo is. We've mocked it up on a lot of different wearables and a lot of different things like trucks and looked at it in the environment, and it really does stand apart as something that adds authority to what RD1000 does. So I think that was one of the things that came out in our initial survey when we talked to Kevin and we did our preliminary research on looking at what the goals and the mission of RD1000 was, and this was what synthesized all that into one mark. We're protecting the community using the levees.
Thank you, Eric. And keep in mind, you guys, this is white, not cream color. And so off the screenshot that I had and off the printer, it is brilliant white. And so actually, let me just see if I can stop the share here for a second or pause it, and I'll just I'll show you guys if I can find it.
It's also approved by the urbanization committee as well. All right, Kevin.
What's that?
the logo was approved through.
Exactly.
organization.
In two different reviews, that was the recommendation was this one here.
So just because I can't help myself and I'm kind of a nerd like this, but Scott, do public agencies trademarks and stuff? I mean, is that? Because I know
Sometimes.
federal trademark, I mean, you have to, I get the federal trade, there's common law trademark, state trademark.
You can, it's really an issue of whether it's the kind of product that you want to reserve and preserve. And, you know, if you imagine that others might take this and want to use it or modify it or copy it or jump on the trails of the agency by somehow playing with it, then it would be worth doing. It's not a particularly expensive
Yeah,
process.
I was gonna say, the effort, the cost of doing so is pretty de minimis, so, yeah. Okay.
So on the screen here, and it'll just be on our cloud recording, whatever. So on the screen, and because I printed it out and it was like cream color, didn't do it justice, but we did spend a lot of time walking through kind of what we feel like key values of the organization and updated colorway and stuff. So was vetted significantly by the urbanization committee and quite a bit of time. So other than the staff presentation here, there are a couple other examples. This is what it would look like essentially on the side of our pickup. Kind of has a really good, so when we show up on site, it's like, kind of like a badge and a shield and some authoritative, positioning that we're responsible and a responsible agency, and we're here to protect and serve the public, kind of like a public safety, right? So this is the black and white version that would look, on the back of, for instance, our safety jackets or any other letterhead that we send out in black and white. And then lastly, what it would essentially look like on letterhead. And we'll work with Page Design to modify the letterhead to make it really good. So I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions or comments, or entertain approval of the updated district logo. The thought would be to not officially use it until probably after the CSDA conference in August. So we would probably likely start using it in September, and that gives us time in the new budget to budget for signage, letterhead, replace our envelopes, replace, what else did we talk about yesterday, John? Yeah, business cards, and we're working on the dot cards and OVO. So
The thing I appreciate is that we don't have a logo anymore, where we have a house encroaching on the levee.
All right. And it-
If not, I think you
At the toe.
for you can see the same picture of houses there.
It's right in the toe. This is not true.
that's a fair observation, Scott. Yeah, that looks above 200-year level in the river. I want to like calm that down. So anyway, go ahead, Mr. President.
Hey, Scott, I'm disappointed to hear those comments because I'm starting to really love that logo. But I understand the rationale for creating, making the change, especially with regard to, the forward-facing aspect of it. I forgot to bring this up at the urbanization committee meeting. I was there, but I forgot to say it. But I did want to ask, I don't know if it's too late in the game, but is there a way to switch the first text, which would be established 1911 with flood protection? The reason for that is I know part of the effort is to try to make it clear to people seeing this logo what our primary function is, which is flood protection for Natomas. And then if we switch the established year below RD 1000, it to me seemed to make a lot more sense. But I'm not a graphic artist, so maybe there's some reason why,
Yeah, so in that regard, Eric and I did play around with that a lot. In the way the badging comes across and for signage and things, it didn't spacing wise, it didn't look right. And so we did play around with that quite a bit. I understand the point a lot, like already 1000 established, 1911 below that, and then having flood protection. But the letter spacing got so spaced out on that arch that it really was like, what are we reading? And so this presented a lot better than the other. We did look at switching those around a couple times.
Yeah.
So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, I agree with you.
I-
I had the same comment. I was like, oh yeah, sequentially when you're reading it, makes sense. It didn't line up, didn't look like us. Right, Eric? We agreed on that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add to that. That's a really good observation. And we did spend some time looking at that hierarchy. A lot of times what we're trying to do is get a communication very succinct and quick across. And so telling people what we do, what we are and what we do immediately was kind of also when we did our initial survey talk, we did a workshop
Right,
kind
and
of
I
around
think
all
part of
this.
that too, when we went through the process, when you look at it, it's already 1000 flood protection. So that's where your eye is drawn to, the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters to many people how long you've been around, but already 1000 flood protection for that name recognition, the center of the badge. And so we kind of narrowed in on that.
And just one final question, sorry, Tom. The logo, when it's placed on vehicles and gear, would it be reflective at night?
Yeah, on the vehicles for sure, and on the back of our class 3 safety vest, we'll make sure it's reflective and meets DOT standards for sure. So part of that is to get estimates and work it into the budget, and already have some placeholders in there. So any other questions, or if there's a motion? Yes, sir.
Good points. Yeah. I too was on that committee meeting that came up and approved this final designation. And I just wanted to say a couple of things I really like about this. Number one, RD 1000 is in big print. When I moved here, I saw the little print on the truck, RD 1000, and I go, are we 1000 or are we 1001? Because I wasn't sure which one. So I like that we are Natomas, although Natomas wasn't necessarily established in 1911, as it might infer, but I think people can figure that out. One of the other things we changed, and I thought that was important, was the direction of flow in the water. I think it's technically correct. Left to right, north to south. And that was a big deal for me, and was able to convince others. The levee is green. I love that part. And we really could say that technically we should just see the peaks of the rooftops. But I do really like this logo, and I think there were 4 or so that were presented to the urbanization committee that we looked at, and this looks exactly like the one we liked best. So, congratulations for putting it all together. And if I get a chance, I'd like to make the motion that when the time comes, make the motion to approve that.
Just one comment. Thanks for that, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm not going to second guess urbanization committee. I guess from my perspective, I do like that the structures are like nondescript, because we're also, we have a significant ag contingent in our district. So these are obviously structures more that can be interpreted that way. I imagine also that of the other options you included, reference, obviously a big component of the basin is the conservancy and the conservation efforts that are associated with that, that also benefit, greatly from what we do, in addition to the ag and the urban folks. But, obviously you have a badge, you can't shove all that stuff in it, but
we did have an option with a lot of environmental elements in it, and it got really busy.
yeah,
Really, I mean, it's even kind of busy with the colorway in the water, but we wanted to show water flowing past us, and then we started adding like tules and birds and rice fields and plains, and it just got too much I thought it was too much of a draw from our existing very simplistic logo. To include all those different elements, but keep the same kind of recognition with the home, the levee, and the water. but to add in a few others. So
Yeah, I get it. Badge can only have so much stuff.
so
Before we take a motion, I did want to just say happy birthday to RD 1000. So. How old are you? Some 112? Yeah.
yeah.
I have a
Happy
question
birthday.
for Miranda's. Are you ready for a new logo? You've seen 3 evolutions now.
I have. And they're getting more and more complicated. So. The next, I don't think I want to be here when we do the next one.
Well, this as long as I'm here as your general manager, this will be the last time you have to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
No, I appreciate it. I think it continues the evolution of the district and get more complicated now. So I think the logo reflects that it's maybe more important and more sophisticated. I guess.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, can I entertain a motion to approve?
So
Second.
Okay, motion to approve the updated district logo and to get the logo trademarked by trustee Perez and seconded by, oh wait,
The other one.
By
Okay.
Smith, second.
Smith, and then seconded by trustee Perez. Board secretary, please take the roll.
Trustee Reader,
Aye.
Reader, I Gilbert,
Aye.
Gilbert, I Aptis,
Aye.
Aptis, I Baines.
Aye.
Baines, I Brandis,
I
Brandis, I Perez,
Aye.
Perez, I Smith.
Aye.
Smith, I approved.
Okay, closed session.
Yeah, committee reports. I will enter in. I was going to print out and do the minutes for the operations committee, but I do want to report during the operations committee this week. We did review the draft budget assumptions and have a recommendation on those budget assumptions that we'll incorporate into our draft budget that will be presented at the May board meeting. We'll be taking that draft budget to the finance committee next Friday for kind of final approval recommendation of the assumptions and then full presentation to the board in May, which will get full feedback, and that gives us another month to finalize the budget. So I want to enter that into the record. It was attended by Operations Chair Banks, Trustee Perez, and Trustee Smith. So we met for about an hour and a half and went through. We also had an update on the preliminary design from Pumping Plant 8. We had KSN come in and give an overview and a presentation about all the design efforts for Pumping Plant 8 and the modeling effort that was done through Utah State. So I will draft up minutes from that and include it for approval at our minutes for the next board meeting. So you'll see of the operations committee meeting. So I wanted to make sure I put that in the record for today.
Share that presentation with the board.
Yeah, we've asked KSN after the operations committee. I think Jeff was headed out of town, so we're waiting to get that presentation back. I also know with all the videos embedded in it that it's probably a large file. So I'll get a PDF cloud version and I can share that with you. And I'd be happy to have KSN come in and do a presentation to the full board once we get a little bit further in that design about the effort for Pumping Plant 8. Yep, it's on my list. I didn't forget, but we have asked and we haven't gotten the response back. So, yeah. Okay, that's it for committee meetings. On to closed session. So, Eric, thank you. Appreciate it. You can log off. We're going to Mr. Gilbert stay on. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.
Thanks, everybody. It was nice working with all of you. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Wow, Scott, you're pretty.
So we're back from closed session.
There's no reportable action taken by the board. The board did not have an opportunity to finish the evaluation discussion and has requested that the item be put on next month to complete as a closed session.
Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? See everyone May 12th.
Thank you.
I'll coordinate with Rebecca.